I'm Aria Schwartz along with Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr show where it's all about the W. What a set of game ones for the WNBA semifinals. Double overtime and a two-possession game. We are honored to welcome legendary former WNBA head coach Pokey Chatman to discuss these semifinal matchups. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over on winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. And remember, downloading the episode makes our stats look better and allows us to continue doing this important work. Want to sponsor an episode of the Winsidr Show? Email us at info@winsidr.com. Please join me in welcoming to the show a legend of basketball and the most winning head coach in Chicago Sky history, Pokey Chatman. I speak for myself and Rachel when I say we always just are so honored to have you on the show, Coach. It's so much fun to dive into the X's and O's, and honestly, it's just fun chatting with you about the W. So let's dive into it. Let's start off with the Chicago Sky versus the Connecticut Sun. Chicago Sky, a team you know very well, not only are you the most winning coach in Sky history, you are the only coach until this point to bring the Sky to this place in the postseason. Heck, you brought them to the finals. Let's get into it. Chicago Sky versus Connecticut Sun. Reactions to game one, in an impeccable game. I lost all of my nails biting them off, and that was before overtime. So how are you doing? What are your thoughts?
Listen, I'm thinking to myself, man, it's nice being a fan in this moment, right? No, just to truly appreciate every aspect of it. Because if you're with, sometimes you're looking at it through a different lens. But I also selfishly thought about how many eyes were watching women's basketball that it would attract from different sports, different areas. And it was exciting. And I think it garnered more attention than everyone expected. And on top of that, the players that are involved and you're happy for their success.
Well, I mean, we have to talk about Courtney Vandersloot. And fun fact, for those of you, again, we were talking before we started recording, I was in the stands back when all-time winningest coach in Chicago Sky history. Let's not forget all the big moves you made back in that period of time. And it's awesome to kind of just talk Sky basketball. But in particular, we can't have this conversation without talking about the triple-double that Courtney Vandersloot had. I mean, she was all over the place, literally all over the court and all over sports news all over the world, which is phenomenal. But I mean, what can you say about Courtney Vandersloot? She was your very first draft pick with Sky. She's been in this situation before 7 years ago where, that was the last time Chicago was in the semifinals. But what can you say just about the play of Vandersloot in general? In my opinion, was just unbelievable.
Yes, and I know I have to be quiet when I speak of Sloot because everyone knows the history. But I promise, as biased as one can be, it's not really about that. I think it's because I had an up close and personal peek into her progress and how far she came and what all it took. And on top of that, it's the manner in which she reaches this level. I think she has the knack for when the court shrinks, her vision becomes clearer and she becomes more poised. Most people panic in the paint. And I think that's something, I could lie and say I taught her that, but I didn't. It's that special part of her.
Yeah.
And she literally controlled that game from tip to the buzzer. And it was just nice seeing her on her stage. And I think the best thing was her reaction when she realized the elite company she was in with. And I think she got teary-eyed. And that in and of itself makes Sloot who she is because she's so damn humble.
She is so humble. And the impressive thing to me, though, is the way she commands the court. Because often we think of leaders as being those loud, vocal people. But she's just so calm and collective, like you were saying. Going into this series, it was very much dubbed a offensive powerhouse versus a defensive powerhouse. And, I'm not going to throw Rachel under the bus here, but she did say defense wins that battle. What were your kind of thoughts before the game started? Kind of important things for this game, and how do you think that played out?
I think if you asked most people, they wouldn't realize how good of a defensive team that Connecticut was all year long, per the
Mhm.
numbers and rankings. And I think that's harder to maintain when you sit for 9 days. As
Mhm.
opposed to offense. I mean, we can, fall asleep and know our offensive schemes, and it's that synergy and that connectivity defensively. Okay, now that's not why Chicago came out and they did Chicago, and in
Yeah.
that first quarter they set the tone, and it was a punch in the gut. There was a response, but the comfort was there from the tip, and I think
Mhm.
that's why you saw the kind of back and forth. I kind of felt like Chicago controlled the tempo the entire time.
Yeah, and I want to know, like, just we talked a little bit about this. Ari and I did, like that double bye is coveted from a rest standpoint, but from your perspective, like Chicago had just played 2 days before. They kind of had their legs underneath them a little bit. Is this more than just this is a Connecticut team that has not played a game in 9 days?
No, I just think it's one piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
one part of the equation, because they're professionals. I think they grind so hard. Certain teams earn that rest; they need it. I think it just plays into other areas. So it's not the only thing. So if you're going to be a little bit slow defensively, then you better damn sure click offensively. Go
Yeah.
to and through your studs. Make sure DB. So all those other things kind of neutralize that.
Yeah.
So it's not to pick it apart. I think it's just one small aspect of it, and that's I don't like to take anything away from Chicago. They came in, they did their work, and they were in
Hmm.
rhythm and they were in flow.
Hmm.
So I think it was
Hmm.
just one aspect of it.
Yeah, I like that. Chicago was themselves, and
Yes.
I think what I think is interesting. I was listening to Kurt Miller talk before game one, and he said, this we are 24-3 in the last 2 years when we have 12 turnovers or less. Finished the game last night with 12, so now they're 24-4. And the turnover number, in my opinion, has a huge say in with both teams. And Chicago, I mean, was still able to withstand 19 turnovers, and Connecticut finished the game with just 12. Again, that's that coveted number for them. So I mean, like, I'm sitting here and I'm breaking down this box the box score, and I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, like Connecticut pounded the ball inside to Jonquel Jones and Brianna Jones, and they put up phenomenal numbers, combining for 48 points together, both of them finishing with a double double. Then you look at Chicago and kind of that balanced scoring that they were able to have, and kept the rebounding numbers equal, which is another huge stat. I mean, so I'm
Mhm.
literally, like, I'm going through the box score and I'm trying to figure out, okay, like, where is the most glaring differential in this game? And honestly, like, it comes down to Chicago made shots, and I mean, even Connecticut had, what is it, 13 more shot attempts,
Mhm.
possessions, whatever you want to call it, than the Sky. But the Sky shot close to 50%. Connecticut shot 38%. So I mean, I think then that goes back to what you were saying. Chicago came in and they were Chicago. They were able to control that rhythm from the start. They had their offense flowing from the start. They were able to just be in command of that game early on. I mean, that's what I saw. I'm just throwing my thoughts out there. Anyone else,
No,
feel
you
free to
you
jump
you
in.
no, you're right. And when you're in a league with 12 teams, you go to those coveted stats that you can pull from, and that's a key point, not the only point, but it's something that you have in the back of your mind. And then sometimes it comes down to rhythm and flow, and the total scoring of Jones and Jonquel and Brianna. It looks great, but it was the flow in which they came. I kind of felt like, where's DB, right? It,
Hmm.
it felt like they were scoring, but they
Sure.
didn't have that flow
Hmm.
in terms of movement, getting to the
Yeah.
third side, inside out, double team. So the numbers came. It didn't come in a way that I had been used to seeing Connecticut. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've been enjoying it as a fan more than a coach. I've been trying to. I mean, sometimes you just because it's fun,
Sure.
to
Yeah.
watch some of these great people, coaches maneuver.
Yeah.
So I just felt like I never felt like Connecticut looked comfortable
Yeah.
offensively, and I want to give Chicago credit with that as
Hmm.
well.
Sure.
And so it kind of felt like they were still trying to get there,
Hmm.
gain that momentum.
Hmm.
Yeah, it really felt like Chicago. I mean, we've all said this. Chicago dictated the pace on both ends of the ball, something that we're so used to seeing from Connecticut this season. I'm curious for you, kind of, what are going to be the keys? Something that shocked me as Rachel was listing off some of those box scores was the rebounding and how equal it was. Because when I look at the Chicago team, I don't think, elite rebounding. And I don't mean that in like a super negative way. But when I think about, the front court of the Connecticut Sun, that's one of the major things I think about. That's got to be a huge accomplishment for the Sky in my mind. But just kind of, Rachel and I were talking about this before we got on here. It almost feels like Connecticut historically, when they get to this point in the playoffs, the backcourt struggles offensively. So I'm just curious for you, kind of what we need. I know I throw like a billion things out there, but like, what does Connecticut need to do differently moving forward in this series?
Wow, I like the numbers, and we do that. You break it down to individual players. I think Chicago may not be deemed elite rebounding team, but they have a couple of guards, perimeter players that can be elite offensive rebounders that gives them extra possessions that helps them when they're shooting 50+%. You think about if Diamond flies in from the 3-point line, she's going because she's probably going to get it. You look at Copper. So that is there. Sometimes, you have players on other teams that may not even attempt to go because they're thinking, if I go, I sure as hell can get my ass back. Right. So sometimes it's not just the front court, it's the ability of those backcourt players that can track the ball, chase it down, give them an extra possession, hit alley 4, kick out 3. Right. Is that thing. I think it's a matter of uh, Connecticut impose your will. You rose to the occasion with JJ, without her. Now it's time to shine. And it's more about what you have done, and Chicago's going to do the same. And then I think when it gets down to it, let's think about this. Despite all that, they still had a chance to win it.
Mm-hmm.
With the
Right,
timeout and the
exactly.
play call. Look,
Yeah.
with the timeout and the play call, so you're still controlling that. With the defensive stop, plus an ability for a throwout or another timeout. So
Mhm.
all those things, and you still had a chance. So I think, look, let's focus on why we're number one, why we're home, give a credit to the opponent, and let's have our pluses go against theirs and see where the chips fall.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat to pick a key player for each team for the rest of the series and then pick a
Oh,
winner for game 2.
key player for the series?
For the rest of the series. Who
Let's
are,
move it.
if I'm a fan watching, who should I pay attention to as kind of a sign of success or lack thereof for either team?
Jonquil
Outside of
Jones.
the obvious?
Yeah,
I know,
you can go
no,
obvious if you want. Totally up to you.
The
no,
MVP.
and
No.
look, I'm saying this based on the totality of things. I think Candace Parker has to be Candace Parker.
Hmm.
Okay, throughout. And I'm saying that based on when she missed, the time of year, and what she can bring, even if she's not scoring 20 points, she can rebound, protect the paint, get them in a
Mhm.
defensive scheme, whether they're hedging, switching, icing, whatever, and she can distribute when Sloot doesn't drop 18 dimes, right? And so that's why I wanted to qualify that. I didn't want to say, oh, well, no joke, Pokey, Candace Parker, right? But it's
Hmm.
that now I think someone that can, diamond the shields, if there's a level of consistency throughout, I think she can affect a lot of areas of the game,
Yeah, I
right?
think. Yep.
She can stretch the floor. She can blow by. She can rebound. She can defend. Um, I think those two. You know what you're gonna get from Allie, from Sloot. Copper on her worst night is damn good,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
Desiree doesn't get enough credit. I
She really
think
doesn't.
those can struggle, but she stretches the floor. So it's those. So that's why I'm saying those two. That's not to put pressure on them.
I
It's
agree with
just I
you.
want to
Yeah.
qualify that. Um, on the other side of the ball, I think from that, outside of the big three or four for Connecticut, I think between January and Jazz and there needs to be a consistency there when they're running half court offense. There can't be a hesitancy. It can't be 5-on-4, right? I
Mhm.
kind of feel like they're spacing, they're getting kicked out too, but your feet aren't set because that favors the defense. I think there needs to be some consistency at their point guard spot. Bree can't just be a defensive stopper with Allie.
Yeah.
She has to run the floor, run the team, use her experience. So I think I'm going to focus on those three players helping their bigs get into their rhythm while controlling what they need to control on the offensive end as well. Prediction on the winner, it has to be a bounce back for Connecticut.
Yeah.
I think that from a momentum standpoint, from an adjustment standpoint, for backs against the wall, it might be quadruple overtime because Chicago's not doing it at all. It's kind of like they're
Right.
not.
Yeah.
But here's the key thing: pressure's on Connecticut, and that's going to favor Chicago. But I'm thinking Connecticut's going to pull this one off. It's going to be close.
I gotta agree, and it sounds like Rachel agrees also. If Chicago can pull off a victory in this one, that is going to be a very, very interesting and tough game
You've
3.
got to be able to split at home. You've got to be able to steal one while you're at home.
Yeah.
And look, we're saying that because we're playing the odds, but the potency of Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yep.
it's very possible. Like this is not a given, and maybe a lot of people, including myself, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm just going to lean towards Connecticut home team.
Same.
They're playing for it, all that stuff.
Let's move on to the other semifinals game. Phoenix Mercury really stride for stride until the very end with Las Vegas Aces. What was your reaction to game 1? Did it go as you thought?
That damn Sandy boy, she will find a way. I love it. Listen. It's interesting listening to all the coaches out there, right? When they lose 2 or 3 games, everyone what they should do. But I'll start with Sandy and her managing to get her team where they are. And this is in no particular order, but what cannot be, stated enough is Brittany Griner from the day she departed the bubble to coming back and continuing to gain momentum through the Olympics. And then at the Olympics, I was like, holy crap, I don't want to play her. Right. And she has maintained that.
Right.
I mean, her footwork, she's attempting threes, the fadeaway, she seems like she's having fun. And it just has to be, because I think sometimes the big girls, Sylvia included, but I'm biased there. You just come to expect that of them, and they don't get their credit, right? Her passing, reading where it's coming from, letting the guard dive, the post dive, and then kicking it opposite, all of that. And then also Skylar Diggins. It's so easy for us to criticize everything, right? But the trust that Sandy, D, and BG and that staff had to put the ball in Skylar's hand at pivotal times prior to this Vegas game, that doesn't mean you're going to take the shot. It means you're going to create an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's trust that had to be really solid because she's not like she's been there for several years,
Right.
And so that being said, they lost by 6 to Vegas. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So kudos to them. And these playing, on crutches. And
finishing with 20.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I have to bring up, like you said, she's literally at maybe 60% tops, and she finishes 6 for 17. That's not the worst thing in the world, but she's getting those shots. She finishes with 20 points. The thing with Phoenix, and I was kind of talking about this last night, it's like, you look at their 5 starters, everybody finishes in double figures. Griner, everyone knows where the ball is going. She finishes 10 for 16, shooting 63% from the field. Gets to the free throw line just 4 times with the world hanging on her. You look at Phoenix, and like you said, Sandy just finding a way, and how Skylar Diggins-Smith has played this year, the implementation and the comfort of them all playing together. I don't like Phoenix looked good to me last night. It's just Las Vegas has so many weapons, and where do you pick your poison? Because with Phoenix, it's a depth thing for me.
Yes.
You've got the 5 starters doing what they do, but from there, where is it? Well, then on the flip side, Las Vegas, you've got Kelsey Plum. And everyone, I say Raquana Williams, she started, but they're combining for, 51 points, which is just insane to me. So where do you pick your poison? You stop Asia Wilson? Do you stop Cam Beige? Do you stop the perimeter scoring? It's just Las Vegas is that good, and they showed their potency last night, in my opinion.
Look, I don't know if I could add anything to that. I started with Phoenix. Listen, I started with Phoenix because I really believe that's great. But when you go to Vegas, and oftentimes when you have talented pieces or unique pieces, there's not enough credit given to bringing those pieces together
Yeah.
synergistically. It's like, how do you make it work? Moving people around. Where do you start? I'm a point guard. I look at Chelsea Gray. She's also that scoring point guard, right? So then she's a threat. And don't let her get in her bag, right? Liz is always going to be in her bag. I mean, an off night for Asia is a great night for someone else, right? Bebe is not just chucking; she's seeing she can blow by people, right? And Kelsey Plum, listen, man, I'm so happy for that kid. I never coached her. I don't know her that well,
Yeah,
but I
she's
remember when she
phenomenal right
first
now.
came out and people were, how they do. They think you're supposed to do what you did in college, and they were
Yep.
hard on her,
Yep.
and she was never truly appreciated. Then the injury, but the way she has come back, hell, I was cheering
Unbelievable.
for her,
How do you
all
not? How do
season.
you not? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and look, I hadn't even gotten through all the Vegas players.
I
However,
know.
that's a credit to Phoenix, but Vegas is just tough, the inside out, the spacing, the defensively, they can get after you. K-Mac, I was thinking about when someone was talking about K-Mac not being there in the beginning of the year. I don't know if you remember this. They're talking about, well, they're going to miss spacing. Bill doesn't shoot threes. I don't know if you guys remember. They're talking about, well, K-Mac is not going to be there. She would space the floor. They don't shoot a lot of threes. Well, hell, they've replaced that. And they've shown that they still don't need
Mm-hmm.
that to be successful. I'm telling you, I remember people calling and asking me, like,
Well, no. I was just going to echo. I was actually talking with Debbie Antonelli recently on that piece that I had written with actually both of you, and she was like, "That's actually not true. That's not the case anymore. Actually, Las Vegas is second in the league in 3-point shooting percentage, and it's actually increased their production from that narrative that was a few years ago. So I think to just kind of capitalize on what you're talking about with like
right.
K-Mac is gone now, and that whole narrative of like Vegas is not a 3-point threat is just not true.
Well, I will say, because I love to disagree with Rachel, that I'm going to side with Pokey on this one, only
Attempt.
because, yes, percentage wise, but the amount that they're shooting them is still like bottom three in the league.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
what they did, in my opinion, was they replaced
Right.
K Mac with like not three other, but Chelsea Gray and Bebe. And now Plum's
Yes.
hitting them. And it's like, for me, the scariest part about the Aces is if what we saw last night, if you survive with them until the last moments of the game, Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and a plethora of other great shooters, and I didn't even mention Liz Cambage, can take the last shot. Like, what are you going to do?
Yep.
It's
I
Right.
like a
agree.
team of Tarasis.
Right. I agree. No, I agree. And I bring that point up is because when the team is really talented, I think you're trying to find
Mm-hmm.
holes to poke, right? So, let's poke that hole. Bill
Sure.
doesn't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
shoot threes, or one year was the lead guard versus the point guard. Here's the deal. They're good.
I mean, they're so good. I mean, I'm.
Okay? And it's gonna take it.
It's there. It's hard to find
Yeah.
holes with them. Like you said, it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah, because it's unique. It's different from, it's so unique as it relates to the other three. And I think that's what makes it exciting, whose style of play will be on display and take them, to the confetti.
It's wild. So let's talk about key players. Like, for me, I'm looking at the Mercury and I'm thinking it's going to come down. Maybe saying Skylar, because look, last night Skylar was very impactful, and I always want to give credit to players when your shot's not falling. Yeah, she shot 4 for 9, so it wasn't that bad, but 1 for 4 from three, and I kind of want just more points than 10 from her. Maybe that's like a simplistic approach. But what Rachel and I were talking about earlier was just, you look at this and you're like, man, if one or two more of those shots go in, this is a very
Mm-hmm.
different outcome. Like, we might be talking about both finals going to the double overtime, right? If Skylar hits a couple more shots, if Diana Taurasi goes 4 for 14 from 3-point range, she essentially shot half the team's 3-pointers and essentially made half the team's 3-pointers. Like, I have to
Hmm.
expect somebody else is going to step up. And Shea Petty, a player who has been around for a very long time, is an amazing story. They called her playoff P because last year she hit that crazy game winner. This season, her playoff performance has been nowhere. And I have to expect that she can be that person to hit one or two more threes to give this team a chance to really compete against the Aces. Am I crazy?
It's not crazy. I drafted Shea Petty way back in the day when she was a baby. So, like I said, I've been a fan. I'm enjoying these kids, these young ladies growing up. I don't think it's too much to ask of Shea Petty when she's that fourth option, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they've double teamed and they're scrambling and she has her feet set. It's a lot to ask of anyone, let alone, a player that's young in this environment to do that. So I think it's one of those things where when she's open and her feet are set, she needs to hit it. The margin of error
Yep.
is really small. I agree with Skylar in terms of she's not a 10-point person. She needs to average more because it fills the hole for when Diana's not out there and everyone else in that regard. So I think you nailed it there. And like I said, no margin for error. I think a player with Phoenix that does not get any credit, man, I almost posted something with Turner, in
Mm-hmm.
that game with Seattle. Just her ability. Look, it's not the sexy side of the ball. I get it. But her ability to defend players that she's given up 25, 30 pounds to, her ability to
Yep.
come over and help and alter. Of course, we remember the block shots, but alter a shot. And then her offensive rebounding, even if she just tips it to keep it alive or the tip in, they need all of that because the task is so tall. So I think Phoenix needs everyone to be
Yeah.
hitting on all cylinders.
Question real quick. I need to ask. You are an elite basketball
Mhm.
mind and you know the history of the W much better than Rachel and I. There's a player that comes to mind when I see Turner play, and I'm curious if there's a WNBA player that comes to mind for you when you see Turner play. Does she remind you of anyone?
Oh, wow.
Because the one I'm thinking of is a
Okay.
very high praise, but maybe I'm going a little out of pocket on it.
Who
I'm
do you
thinking
think?
of Rebecca Brunson, a player who did all the hustle plays, played great defense, was there to make a rebound or a putback when you needed it, and didn't get the praise, but was so key on the success of a team.
No, I think from that standpoint, in terms of praise and appreciation, maybe I know her teammates did, but she also had a little more range. I marvel at I can't remember seeing Turner take a jump shot outside of 12 feet,
That's a good point.
and she's still impact, but she's still impactful. And then her ability in the half court for a lob or a back screen and a slip and finishing around the basket. But from the appreciation standpoint and a glue standpoint and dirty work standpoint, I get that. I can't think of anyone right off the bat, but I enjoy watching her maneuver and be impactful.
Love it. I let's jump into just kind of some predictions and thoughts. I mean, like you said, I love the margin for error, like especially against this Las Vegas Aces team. I picked Vegas to win in 4. I do think that Phoenix will steal a win in here at some point, and that very well could be Thursday night, tomorrow, today, depending on whenever you're listening to this. But I do think, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. It's going to take an entire army and a really great performance. And honestly, I think they played really well the other night. I mean, this is important to be noted. I mean, 14 total turnovers between both teams. I mean, Phoenix only turned the ball over 6 times, which was phenomenal. And I mean, they shot the ball well. They did what they needed to do. I just think it wasn't quite enough, either side of the ball. So I think, and I'll ask you next, Coach. I think I'm gonna say that Phoenix still has enough gas in the tank. They're not going to be too tired quite yet. They're going to have that extra Who knows? Maybe Sophie Cunningham will drop another 30 piece. Who knows? But I think that Phoenix will steal one on Thursday. Maybe catch Vegas on off shooting night. What's your prediction? It's tough.
Wow,
I know you hate
I'm
it.
not good at the predictions. No, I actually don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'm just not really good at it because I don't factor in a lot of the things that you guys see and factor into it. I no, but I'm telling on myself. I'm being honest. Um, I think it's one of those things where Vegas may feel like they didn't play well as a unit and their key players. And they may think that margin wasn't big enough, right?
I
And they
like
may
that.
refocus on
Yeah.
some things, don't want to give them confidence in that regard. So I don't know. Yeah. Anyone with Diane on the team is going to make it tough. I get that, but she's not 100%. I think Vegas will take the next one.
So I am, and I know this is like a ridiculously hot take, like, and probably is going to smack me in the face, but I actually picked the Mercury to win this series, and I knew, and I know, the contrarian in me was like, I have to do it, I have to do it. But I like hearing you, Coach, talk about the Aces re-centering and looking at, and I expect a giant game from Asia Wilson in this coming matchup. But yeah, I just feel like the Mercury can kind of hang their hat, and we haven't really spoken about the fact that, for Chicago and the Mercury, both teams, they played 3 games in 6 nights, and that means that there was at least 2 travel days in those 6 days. Now, at least because it's a second home game for the opposing team, you're not traveling on that rest day. So I think Diana's going to feel better. The Mercury are going to come out and win in a nice fashion, to the point where the starters are pulled by Las Vegas midway through the 4th. Call me crazy, and just
It'll be
hoping
interesting.
that my hot take
No,
lasts.
listen, I'm not going to call you crazy. If listen, for this reason, I said what I said, but I also had the pleasure of coaching Diana Taurasi, right? So I know about that assassin and all that, but from a fan standpoint, I
Right.
hope it goes 5 games, and
Mhm.
however we get there
Selfishly,
is
yeah.
fine with me. And it's more storylines, it's everything else. So I love your prediction, and I would be okay with that as
Well, I
well.
appreciate that. Before we let you go, Coach, I just want to touch on something. I'm sure you heard the news that your former player, Sylvia Fowles, won her 4th Defensive Player of the Year award. One of the greatest bigs of all time, one of the greatest WNBA players of all time. Any thoughts on that? Did you think, after her first couple ones, that she'd be winning it this late in her career?
Listen, I'm so excited. I think Sylvia makes people forget that she's
Right.
35 years old, right?
Right.
Uh, she started taking care of her body years ago when she decided to go to
Mhm.
China and not stay in Europe. That began a pattern of having more treads on her tire, right? But she's also she has the power, she has the speed, and she has the quickness. I don't know another player that has all of those. And yes, defensively, I'm so excited because she can get out there and switch off on a guard. She can track a guard to the rim. She can alter. She can block. She can make people change their mind about going in there. So to see her get this recognition again, I don't know.
Aw.
I feel like a proud mom. I'm so happy for her. And no, because look, she's special, and because she doesn't have this big personality where she's trying to,
Mhm.
I don't know, she's just being Syl. I think sometimes she's not appreciated enough. And that's what I normally can't say. They're like, yeah, Pokey, you coached her. Well, damn, I did. So
Yeah,
listen to what I'm
yes.
saying.
Love
The
Mhm.
it, love it.
girl is, it's that. Like Minnesota shouldn't be campaigning for her. Watch the damn game. She's a stud. She's quick. She's beating double teams before they get there. Like there's a reason why they can't double, because she buried the person so deep in the paint,
Mhm.
right? So I'm excited for Syl, and I hope she has a few more years left in her tank.
Me too. And I've watched highlights of her from LSU days, and then you almost forget how fast and nimble she is. And I think there was someone recently, we were talking about how all the voting went down for the Defensive Player of the Year award, and there someone was debating me about it on social media, cuz as we've talked about, everyone's a coach behind the keyboard. And somebody was like, well, she can't get out and cover a guard when she gets pulled out on a switch. And I'm
Not
like, have
true.
you
Not
watched
true.
this season? She gets low, and honestly, I can't run straight as fast as she moves from side to side covering a guard. It's ridiculous.
It is, and and listen, you guys know because you watch the game, you understand the game. It's not just covering them in a one-on-one situation. It's about that guard's going to see the switch. They're going to want to attack the big's legs. It's about keeping an angle to track them to the rim and alter a shot. So you just have a guard who was normally shooting over another guard. They happen to shoot over a 6'6" who stayed close enough to alter. And that's what we appreciate.
Mhm.
They're thinking they're supposed to stop them one on one in isolation. Hell, guards can't do that. So let's be real. So yeah, I'm excited for Syl. Oh my God, yeah, yeah. I would have been pissed if she didn't get it.
We can't thank you enough, and I can't agree with you anymore. From the center in me, I am one of the biggest Sylvia Fowles endorsers on the planet, and my God, we are just so fortunate to witness her greatness year in and year out. Shout out to Sylvia Fowles. You are amazing. Coach, thank you so much for joining us and talking hoops. You are more than welcome to come on anytime. These semis, as we get into the finals, we love hearing your analysis, and everybody make sure you're tuning in tomorrow or today, Thursday night. You've got the Chicago Sky at the Connecticut Sun for Game 2, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by Phoenix Mercury at the Las Vegas Aces at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Game 2, going to have a lot of storylines following up. Coach, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, listen, my pleasure. You guys keep doing what you do. This game deserves it. I appreciate
We
you.
appreciate you, Coach. Thank you.